I mentioned using your easement. If you're the serving estate and you're using your easement, you can make any use of it that is not inconsistent with the easement holder's rights. Well, that gets you into the issues of encroachments and obstructions on an easement. So sometimes you'll have, like in this picture, somebody doesn't want to put a shed on their property. Perfectly reasonable, very common. But if you're underneath overhead utility lines, that might create a hazard. Because probably most people that are watching know that these lines are subject to going up and down based on ambient environmental conditions. Electricity can arc from a wire onto nearby objects and electrify them. And there's something called the National Electric Safety Code, which has been incorporated into the Ohio Administrative Code, so it has the force of law in Ohio. And it sets forth minimum clearance requirements based on a variety of circumstances, and utilities have to abide by these guidelines and these rules. So there's a case, Ohio Edison versus Wilkes, and this was a case that our firm handled several years ago in 2012. And it's a nice little case study, so I want to kind of walk you through the facts. So in 1949, which probably most of you know, it's not at all unusual to find easements that old when you're dealing with transmission lines, and even older. So Ohio Edison acquired this easement right, and it had the right to keep obstructions out of the easement. And then in 1977, so we're fast forwarding almost 30 years, the Wilkes, who were the property owners at this issue, bought this property. Another, almost 2 decades goes by, and the Wilkes decide, we want to put up a shed and put in a pool in our yard within the right of way. So they did it, and somehow Ohio Edison didn't notice for a long time, from 93 to 2008. So in 2008, they finally figured it out, and Ohio Edison said, you know what, this is a NESC, National Electric Safety Code violation. You have to move this shed and the pool. It's too close. The clearances are not what they need to be. And it doesn't really seem like a big deal, I think, for most people. I mean, for the pool, they were only about 5 feet too close to the lines. And the shed, it was even less. It was like 3 feet. And of course, if you're the property owner in that situation, and you paid, $30,000 for your pool or whatever, you don't want to have to do anything like that. So they didn't want to do it, and they refused. So Ohio Edison, which I will disclose that our firm represented Ohio Edison in that case, they filed suit and said, you have to get those out of here. And the issue was, are these obstructions within the meaning of the easement? Because they don't really cut off the line of sight. They don't really prevent the lines from going through. It's sort of not what you'd think of with an obstruction of an easement, like putting up a fence along a road or a private pathway that someone has an easement on. And the court said, you know what, doesn't matter. It is an obstruction because by virtue of the National Electric Safety Code clearance requirements being binding as a matter of law on the utility, they cannot run fully rated transmissions through these wires based on this obstruction. So if it's a 132 kV line, well, they can only run 69 kV transmissions through it, because that would satisfy the NESC. It's not safe to do a 132. They have a right under the easement to do a 132. It's an obstruction. It's got to go. And then the question was, wait a minute, like, this pool has been here since 1993. What are we talking about? Like, don't we have some sort of statute of limitations issue? And the court said, no. The way the trespass works, which is what it determined that this was, is it's a continuing trespass. So every day that these obstructions remain in the right of way is resetting the clock on the statute of limitations. So there was no time bar issue.